We'd like to welcome you to another edition of GrokTALK, brought to you by GrokTALK.com, New Hampshire's conservative website. We are your feared, extremist, right-wing, hard-charging, gun-toting, opinionated, outspoken, rabble-rousing, letter-writing, radio microphone-stomping conservatives and rational libertarians. So get ready for 2 hours of news and opinion you could only get from GrokTALK.com. GrokTALk.
You can see Mike wandering in a little late on the live stream. Welcome to GrokTALK, brought to you by GrokTALK.com, New Hampshire's leading conservative website, and CNHT, the coalition of New Hampshire taxpayers. You're talking while I'm on the air, dude. Stop it. Jen Coffey will be with us later this morning, and Dan Itza, also, state rep, is planned to be here. We have a lot of things we could talk about. We could talk about the uncontested arrival of Democrat activists like Alexandra Caballero, who we spoke about last week with Ed Nail. Turns out she's a serial absentee voter in South Carolina, which means why did she vote absentee here last election? We could also talk about the Ukraine, or as we talked about before, Crimea River, and
if you like your Crimea, you can keep
it.
Your Crimea.
The observation I made about Obama's remarks was that he's about as intimidating as a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. We have Arizona, we have Medicaid, we have bondage, dominance, and submission, we have GOP committees revolting on Medicaid expansion, and we have GrokTALK now available and for your listening pleasure on, let me turn Mike's mic on so Mike can be Mike. Hi, Mike. You are now able to listen to us on iTunes, iHeartRadio, Spreaker, TuneIn, and Stitcher. Always looking for new and exciting ways to make our voices available for you. And like I said in my little post that I put up, I said now our Democrat trackers can listen to us on any device, in any operating system, anywhere, anytime.
Is that enough for them?
I don't care. We're making the effort to make ourselves available for their misinterpretation and cherry picking, and if they don't take advantage of it, that's not my fault.
Well, and of course, we always go back to the old-fashioned style, at least it seems to be now, YouTube and Ustream.
We are also on YouTube. We are also on Ustream. There is absolutely no excuse for you to not be able to find something to complain about that we've spoken about in detail.
Yeah, just do us one favor. Let us know what you want to complain about, so we can respond. Actually, I will give you the open opportunity. In fact, have offered this to several people on the left so far. If you don't like what we say, we are very much unlike you, because the left always, when they hear speech that they don't like, they want to shut you up. They want to silence you. We, on the other hand, believe that the antidote for bad speech is more speech, not less speech. So here's always an open invitation for you guys to come on in here. Come on in, bring a friend. Be more than happy to debate the issue.
Can you find the phone number, by the way? Because I seem to have misplaced a piece of paper. And we are going to maybe try call-ins today for those of you listening
this
on
is
the live
our
stream.
high-tech Rolodex.
It is, yes. It's a bunch of posties stuck together.
Yeah.
So he's going to look for that.
Most of us share our Rolodexes anyway, and they're all in our
So hello,
phones.
stranger.
Yeah, sorry, it's been a week or two, hasn't it?
It's been. This would have been week 3 without you.
No, I had to make it this time. I was hosting a
stuck in airports is what it sounds
well,
like.
that happened one time. Last week I was hosting a high-powered Bush from Texas at my house. John Bush, the anarchist, who
the 10th Amendment Center.
Well, he was one of the folks producing the nullification documentary. He's also a filmmaker in his own right. He's producing a series called Sovereign Living, which I can actually talk about a little bit in the second half hour if we don't have a guest to tell you a little bit about what it's about. He's the guy that we're hoping to get on and debate anarchy versus small government, because he's one of several people that believes that citizens should have the right to opt out of interaction with their government and run their own lives through peaceful collaboration, cooperation, and capitalism. I think there are a number of reasons why it won't work, but there are proponents of that in New Hampshire as well. For example, Ian Underwood. And he's presented at the Pork Fest. He was at the Liberty Forum. And that's one of the reasons why I was just a tad tied up last week, because I had guests.
I actually like the idea that people should have the ability to opt out, but we see the progressives as typified by my former New Hampshire State Senator Kathy Scambati in talking about Obamacare. She said, in order to make this work, everybody has to be all in. In other words, it harkens back to the last Democrat convention for the presidency, where they said government is the only thing that we all belong to. And I never understood whether we have chosen to belong to government or government owns us all. And with those kinds of guys, I tend to think more of the latter than the former.
I'm sure that's what they mean. In the sense that it's a club that we all voluntarily belong to as citizens, yes. But in that case, the club follows the rules voted on by the citizens. It can be clearly demonstrated that for at least 100 years, the board of the club has gone their own way, and the citizens were increasingly saying, "Why are we members?"
Sounds like one of the Republican Party things that we could talk about.
We could talk about a lot of things today. The line to call in, and we have no way to know if you're calling us, so it's kind of
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. I have to watch.
Oh, well, see, that's just it. You have to watch, and it's sort of a crapshoot sort of a thing, but the number, we'll do line 2, because line 2 is better.
But I got a device. I have. Hold on. The problem is it doesn't ring. I have a device for that.
Yeah, but you don't have it here.
Not yet.
Well, see, so
Okay.
I have lots of things, and they're not here. In fact, just about everything I own is not here. Line 2, the number is 715-9690. Do we know what the area code is for that? Is it?
It's got to be 603.
It would
Probably
be
603. 715-9690 if you would like to call in or attempt to call in and see if we notice you calling in. And we'll have Mr. Skip. See, now he's walking away right after I give you the number. You can't call. We're just teasing you.
Oh, it does light up.
It does.
It does. Is somebody actually calling us?
Yes.
No, it's me testing.
Oh, it's you testing.
Testing. Oh, God.
Oh, it is. Well, it lights up, we know. It was somebody. It was Mike.
It was Mike.
But Mike has a mic, so Mike doesn't have to call in. So anyway, we have Jen Coffey coming in later to talk about Medicaid and her experience, a personal experience that she wants to relate with herself or somebody else involving Obamacare. And, of course, Dan will be hopefully here to talk about something new and exciting. His new book. Oh, hey, I turned you off because you left the room, sort of. He's got a new book coming out on, I would assume, something to do with the state constitution.
State sovereignty.
State sovereignty. Excellent topic. We love that topic, not just for our state, but for everybody's state. So let's take a look at our list here. Obviously, Medicaid is a hot topic this week because a lot of state committees have been coming out issuing resolutions. These are town, city, and county committees of the state who are saying, hey, you know what, we don't agree with the Medicaid expansion idea.
This would be the Republicans.
Correct.
Democrats are all in for this.
I don't care about Democrats.
Well, still, we do
I'm sorry.
for our
Just for
listeners and readers.
It's a given that if the federal government is offering you a big pile of money, no matter how poisonous or how many strings are attached, they're like, give it, we want it.
And now we see Republicans doing the same thing,
Correct.
except they try to hide it with the use of deflecting verbiage.
Correct. So a lot of state and town, a lot of town and county committees have been coming out and going, you know what, we disagree with this idea, this SB 413, to take this money because we don't think it's the right time, we don't think it's hammered out well enough, we don't want to, 3 years down the road, a different legislature is going to have to decide how to handle the bill they're passing today. The bill today says we're going to take the money. We don't know what we're going to do with it quite yet or how we're going to handle it, but we're going to take it, strings attached and all, and then in 3 years, if we decide we don't love it, we're going to sunset it. If we do keep it, we're going to pay 10% or whatever. Now, we already know that the federal government's going to cut Medicaid expansion. I think it's already been made public. So the question for these legislators who are going to be here in 3 years, and if you're a legislator today and you think you're going to be a legislator in 3 years, you might want to consider the problem that in 3 years, if you vote for this today, you have to say, A, okay, we're going to cancel it, or B, we're going to tax you to pay for it.
And by the way, manure heaps have a habit of becoming more smelly as time goes by, so don't vote for it for now because it's going to stink more later.
It's not going to go away. There's going to be lots of taxes. Nobody's going to have the guts. The Republicans aren't. They don't have the guts now. They are not going to have the guts in 3 years.
And that's the point. Because you see that happening in D.C., where every single time a big political fight comes up, the Republicans say, well, we're not going to make waves, we're going to run away, and it will be the next thing that we will make our stand on the Hill and make the fight. This debt ceiling was supposed to be that thing, and they just totally caved without anything going on.
Yeah, and we all know how well giving in to everything works. I was listening to an old Rush Limbaugh segment this morning. A study was done of wives and husbands. The wife was not in on the gimmick. At the beginning, they were both asked about their quality of life. The husband was instructed, without his wife's knowledge, to simply agree to everything. Yes, dear, whatever you want, dear. You're always right, dear. Sorry, I'm wrong. Let me take that trash out. After 12 days, she was ready to divorce him for being such a goddamn wimp. And both of their quality of life indices, get the word right, were down dramatically. So, why am I saying that? Well, I think the proper sentence is, welcome to the Sudetenland, Herr Putin.
Yeah, I was about to say, given your example of the man and wife, certainly Putin is not being the appeaser, is he? So what does that make Mr. Obama?
And Mr. Kerry. Yeah, which one's Chamberlain and what's the other one? The other one's the Quisling government of France? I don't know.
It was, Quisling was the prime minister at the time.
Quisling has become a noun since then for any kind of cowardly wimp who won't stand up for himself or his people.
Well, actually, not so much standing up, but he actually actively worked with the Nazis.
Right.
So it was a case of, all I have to do is run faster than you so that the bear doesn't get me.
And you know what? That's a pretty accurate depiction of today's scenario, where Obama plans to outrun the bear, but he's going to catch us.
Well, you notice that with his, or what I've been calling determined weakness for years now, that once again Obama has decided to lead from behind. His speech last night was, "We will stand with the international community." Meanwhile, the international community is used to seeing the leader of the free world stand up and do something about this, and Obama goes, you guys figure it out.
Yeah,
and
so
like I said, after Syria,
and Libya,
and everything else,
Egypt.
Yeah, he's a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. That's the best you're going to get out of him.
Voluntarily, he's made himself that.
Yeah. In Libya, the Europeans basically did the ass-kicking and we provided support. In Syria, he just gave the game away to Putin. And in Crimea, well, there was a war over Crimea about a century ago. I'll have to look up the exact reasons why it started, but I'm sure it involved the Russians and some of the other contenders for that space.
Well, in Syria, is it really the Russians that have taken over, or is it Iran? Which, you look at what he and Kerry did, what Obama and Kerry did with Iran. They basically said, okay, no more sanctions, and it broke the back of whatever they were trying to do to keep Iran contained. So once again, he's unleashing the powers that will create chaos around the world. For as much as the libertarians may not like the idea that we have been the world's policemen, and I think a lot of more pacifistic type of people are okay with the U.S. no longer being the world's cop and keeping, from my standpoint, there's a dichotomy there, because who has been keeping all of the trade routes free, especially on the ocean? It's been the U.S. Navy. Now, with us not being able to handle that, or we've been told we aren't going to handle that, what is going to be the new world order with a resurgent Russia and an incipient world power called China, who is actively working to make their navy much, much larger? Where's the U.S.?
Don't answer that question yet.
Why?
Because we're going to take 60 seconds, and then we're going to come right back, and you can tell me something brilliant, because I know you know what it is you're going to talk about. Hang on a second. We'll be right back.
Obamacare has been a disaster for New Hampshire families. 22,000 New Hampshire citizens have already lost their insurance, and countless more are being forced into part-time work. Now, the New Hampshire Senate wants to make things even worse by expanding Medicaid coverage as part of Obamacare. That move could force an additional 20,000 people off of their current plans and onto Medicaid. Shortly, the Senate will be voting on Obamacare's Medicaid expansion, Senate Bill 413. The Heritage Foundation says Medicaid expansion will cost New Hampshire taxpayers $126 million more. What's worse, the expansion will increase emergency room usage by 40%, meaning longer wait times and even higher costs. Stop the Senate from making a costly mistake. Call your state senator and tell them to vote no on SB 413. Go to strongnh.com to find your senator's phone number today. Paid for by Citizens for a Strong New Hampshire.
Okay, back to that. Well, the first thing is the ticker on my iPad just flashed before my eyes and says, Putin asks Russian Parliament for permission to go stomp on Ukraine.
Oh, God.
Well, this was obviously what was going to happen. I think we all knew that. I wrote about it when they first started this little rebellion thing. I said, here's the situation. He needs the Ukraine. He can't do what he wants without it. His entire Eurasian Union hinges on him having control of it. There's no way he's going to let it go.
Well, that's right. And we'll recall in 2008, the Democrats and the left-wing media made great fun of Sarah Palin for saying that based on what just happened in Georgia, with the Russians basically strong-armed their way into it, took over South Ossetia and so on, that if we had Obama as a president, the Russians would take over the Ukraine. Well, they've been playing with puppet regimes in there for the last few years, and finally the people had had enough, and now he's ready to go stomp on them with his military, and he's basically asked for permission. Not that he asked for anybody's permission before he sent unmarked shock troops into the Crimea to take over the airports, secure the highways to his Black Sea naval ports, and so on. Peaceful cooperation, leasing the base, guaranteed access is apparently not something he wants to talk about. Guarantee to him means I own the land in between. And so I read this thing about Sarah Palin being right and the media being distraught, because she actually did say "told you so." But I then remembered back a few years. There was a huge dispute. Europe had a very cold and shivery winter, because the big bad bear in the Kremlin was in a dispute with the Ukraine over what they should be paying for natural gas from Russia that was going through a pipeline that also happened to carry on into Europe. And basically they kept taking their share, and he wanted more money for their share, and he cut down the flow. So by the time he got to Europe, there wasn't much coming out the pipe. And it was a huge dispute, and it very nearly turned militarily nasty right then. So the signs were all there. The writing was on the wall. Sarah Palin was right, and nobody was listening. And just want to drive that home for those lefties out there who still think she's a screw or two loose.
Yeah, that's actually a really great thing to have brought up, because I posted that last night, exactly what she said. After the Russian army invaded the nation of Georgia, so this is number 2, Senator Obama's reaction was one of indecision and moral equivalence, the kind of response that would only encourage Russia's Putin to invade Ukraine next, Palin told Foreign Policy back in 2008. And of course, she took to Facebook last night and said, "Yes, I could see this one from Alaska." I'm usually not one to told you so, but I did. Despite my accurate prediction of being derided as an extremely far-fetched scenario by the highbrow Foreign Policy magazine, she wrote, "Here's what that stupid, insipid woman predicted back in 2008. And of course, we all have to remember what Romney was taken to task during the last presidential debate, where basically Obama said, Mr. Romney, the 1980s are asking for their foreign policy back, and he sneered at Romney about the idea that the Cold War could be coming back. Surprise!
With Putin in the Kremlin, what do you expect? And in the case of Russia, it's about influence. You're right that Russia isn't actually the one that owns Syria. I'm sure it's Iran and the Al Qaeda and the Taliban that are gradually going to take these over. Not so much the Taliban, but Al Qaeda. The signs are everywhere. The Christians are being slaughtered and driven out everywhere there's any kind of Arab Spring. Not that I want to deny the Arab peoples their freedom and some form of constitutional government, but the kind of groups they're aligning with to get there are not going to give them that result, as witness what happened with Mohammed Morsi in Egypt. It didn't get better, it got worse. And you may decry the military taking back over, but the military was largely secular and largely observed everybody's rights equally badly.
It's also important to understand that socialism and communism thrive in chaos, and they require it as a prerequisite to conquest. They have to, go to Marx, you have to tear everything apart. You have to destroy everything first before you can rebuild it. The chaos is a requirement. The Occupy was about the chaos. They never got as far as they planned to, but without that kind of rebellion, they can't get what they want.
I'm going to take you to task on that one. Because in Marx's writings, he actually spoke of the evolution of society and mentioned capitalism as a necessary stage before you could go that step of perfecting humanity to achieve socialism and communism and the workers' paradise. And the reason they need that is because they need the money. And I think they've left the United States to prosper for longer than any of the others in the hopes that, having become prosperous enough, they can convert us into a socialist society without it all going wrong like it has everywhere else. Of course it won't work. Of course it's doomed to failure. You're right that they're going to foment chaos as part of the transition, but you have to have a certain level of wealth and prosperity in order to be able to plunder that.
Isn't the ultimate goal, though, to destroy all your existing institutions so that ultimately you don't even need government?
It is. It's called the Dense Pack, and we see that. In fact, there's a post I'm going to put up by
the Dense Pack?
Peggy Dense Pack.
Well, that's
theory.
the thing. See, the institutions don't go quietly. You have to rebel against them.
No, it's more of a case that they're pushing on just about every conceivable front possible. Now, I had found that article about what Planned Parenthood of New England was going to do. If I could talk right, Tom put the post up about basically Planned Parenthood marketing a video.
Dominance, submission, sadomasochism.
Yeah, S&M for kiddies. This is kiddie porn being pushed by PP&E, and we see a whole bunch of New Hampshire state senators, mostly Democrats, but Bob Odell took money from PP&E. We've got Gene Shaheen overriding federalism, injecting money into PP&E. So, Gene, does that mean that you're responsible for that video of basically porn to be? And by the way, folks, just to reiterate, if you want to join us here, especially, I'm going to do a shout out to Chris P. Bacon, who left a comment saying, "Gee, can I finally talk to Skip?" The number is 603-715-9690 if you want to join in the fun. But you guys are right. You guys are right in that without the chaos, without the induced chaos, they can't change things. They're going after organized religion. They're going after the nuclear family. They've almost all taken over the traditional institutions that used to constitute civil society. They've reduced the space between organized government and the individuals, and now they're weaponizing government to be against individuals that don't believe in the same political ideology.
And they already own the entire educational system.
And the media and the cultural institutions. Folks, I hate to say it, but how often, except for the Tea Party, do you hear stuff like, "I believe in God. I happen to believe in the Constitution. I believe in the traditional values that make this country great." Yet we are the extremists. We are the haters. We are the ones that are the outliers. Folks, this has all been done before in the past, over and over again in history. And these folks on the other side, Obama, Organizing for America, or Obama, or whatever they want to call themselves, OFA, Occupy Wall Street, all these other things, and I sound like a screaming conspiracy theory where instead of wearing my red Granite Rock hat, I should be wearing tinfoil. But when you look at the stuff that's been going on in the news, the IRS targeting the Tea Party, going after our energy sources, this, that, and the other thing, the EPA basically saying, we're going to tell you how to run your lives under the rubric of, well, we need clean air and clean water. Aren't we no longer the land of the free?
It's interesting. I've been reading about Wilson's socialist war economy.
Oh, boy.
And their approach was that if you said anything anti-American, anything anti-war, anything that wasn't anti-Germany during World War I, anything at all, I mean, you could get yourself censored. They would prohibit the postmaster would not deliver your mail, your magazines, everything. I mean, they had people going out. And if you look at the parallels, it's flipped. It's the same scheme, not as broad at this point. It's the same scheme, but it's different. It's the same ideas, the same attack structure, the same almost fascistic war economy. They've got it arranged. OFA. Look at OFA. OFA could very easily just operate as anything that FDR did or that Wilson did. You have people spying on you. You have these organizations that exist to go out and meet groups and to contradict opposition opinion and everything, and they're institutional. It's huge. OFA is massive.
And in fact, they are the reincarnation of Goebbels' propaganda ministry.
Yeah. Well, we just reported that somebody was going around taking pictures of all the license plates of the attendees at the 223 rally last Sunday. We've got the NSA, FBI, DEA, and probably a whole host of other organizations actively admitting that they've been spying on Americans.
And that's why you need your tinfoil hat to keep the NSA away from your brainwaves.
Yeah, and we've got the
special tinfoil. Reynolds Wrap has a new slogan.
Yeah. Well, we've got the FCC.
We keep away the NSA.
How do I follow that?
Just keep going.
You had the FCC wanting to do this critical information survey called SIN, that they were going to put observers, CIN, basically into every single news outlet. And, the FCC only has regulation on over-the-air broadcasters, radio and TV, but not cable companies, certainly not newspapers. And yet the whole idea was to basically get people to rat out other people to say, how do you make decisions on what news you're going to do? I'm sorry, that is not something the government is supposed to be in.
They want to
doing.
make sure that all groups are covered. In other words, if you're not providing enough news stories on gays, blacks, whatever, if you're not providing suitably favorable coverage to favored groups, then they want you to explain why. If I had to deal with one of those people, I'd provide them a nice padded cell with no cell phone coverage and a locked door, a landline-only telephone that was monitored, and say, here's your office. You'll be thrown out if you try and work anywhere else.
Well, the chief executive, Mr. Obama, his office, has already, at least on 3 separate occasions, specifically asked people to share information about their friends and neighbors who might be critical of the regime or its intents, or maybe just misunderstand. Which takes us right back to Wilson.
The Truth Squads.
Yeah,
right.
Might misunderstand their good intentions because, as we all know, Democrats are never judged on results, only on their good intentions, which is why we're in this little basket and it's getting kind of hot around here.
Well, did you put up the post about Zandra Rice Hawkins complaining about the 2 people? And now Harry Reid, President of the U.S. Senate, said anybody who's complaining about Obamacare is lying.
Yep, and it's just gonna get worse.
We have to throw their asses out, and we have to elect conservatives to do that.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of segment 1. We'll be back in a couple minutes, about 3 of them to be exact, 3.5 or so, and that's it for this segment of GrokTALK. I'm Steve McDonald here with Mike Rogers and Skip Murphy. We will be right back.
Turned off or tuned out recently? Can't believe what you see or hear these days? We have the show for you. It's all about taking control through understanding what's happening. Dr. Julianne Cooper, founder and president of Liberty Harbor Academy, hosts Carpe Diem, New Hampshire's first culture and education show on WSMN Radio 1590. Longtime history professor, entrepreneur, and cultural commentator Dr. Cooper will discuss what's happening in and to American culture and education. From pop culture to higher education, Dr. Cooper will help you make sense of the world. So, seize the day. Listen to Carpe Diem with Dr. Cooper every Tuesday from 11 to noon.
Steve McDonald here. Molly Shaheen, Senator Jean Shaheen's daughter, has a very expensive LA apartment where she lives and works, but for some strange reason, she voted here in New Hampshire. Elena Biden, niece to the man a heartbeat away from the presidency, well, she never lived in New Hampshire at all, and she voted here and went back home. New Hampshire Democrat Emma Roos invited her adult children to leave their homes in Virginia, Washington, D.C. to claim they lived in New Hampshire to vote last November, and they went back home. New Hampshire State Senator Martha Fuller Clark, vice chair of the New Hampshire Democrat State Party, she had a whole bunch of people who aren't from here living in her home, including a paid congressional staffer and an ACLU lawyer from Arkansas. They don't live here. They all claim to be claiming to live here just so they can vote here and then leave. That's not all the Democrats who showed up to steal your votes and then leave, but that'll get you started. This is Steve McDonald for Granite Rock, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
GrokTALK is 2 hours of news and opinion you could only get from GraniteGrok.com. But don't limit yourself to GrokTALK. Check us out at GraniteGrok.com. Follow us on Facebook or Twitter by searching Granite Grok.
Grok TV.